On the 5th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks, September 11th Families for Peaceful Tomorrows brought together representatives of 24 international peace organizations.
Peaceful Tomorrows has been building a network of international friends since the beginning.
Enchanté.
The members of these organizations have each been directly affected by political violence, terrorism, and war. Yet they have all chosen to work for nonviolence.
We invited people to come here, talk about the work that they've done in their own countries.
It's wonderful to meet you. From Sudan. I'm here to share what you have gone through for the last 21 years. And thank you.
It's overwhelming to meet so many wonderful people working for peace.
Afifa, Sharifa, Esma. Afghanistan, Algerian in Paris.
I'm expecting to learn much, to share much, and to build a network of peace builders and peacemakers.
People had come from all over the world. They brought experience of violence in places with long-standing conflict, like Colombia, Northern Ireland, and Afghanistan. Some had lost family members to terrorist attacks in Bali, Chechnya, and Madrid. Still others were victims of state-sponsored violence, the mafia, and weapons that overwhelmingly kill civilians.
If there has been one theme of our work with Peaceful Tomorrows, it has been civilian casualties. Our recognition that our loved ones were civilian casualties of terrorism, that they were part of a larger universe of people who had suffered in similar ways, and that we wanted to spare other people the pain that our families had experienced and the losses that we had suffered. At the end of the 20th century, 90% of the deaths in war were civilians. Deaths from decades-long low-level civil wars, deaths from dislocation and disease. These are people we don't hear about because their deaths are not dramatic the way that September 11th was dramatic. And as we begin our work today, I would like us to return to the days immediately after the September 11th attacks, when the whole world came together in sympathy and solidarity for those who were killed. It was a time when people in Iran and Egypt held candlelight vigils spontaneously for the victims who had been killed in the United States. It was a time when almost half of Americans said that they would not support the bombing of Afghanistan if it meant that there would be significant civilian casualties. We believe that another world is possible, that war is not the answer, and that each one of us has the power to effect change.
The delegates began their work together by sharing personal stories in a forum led by Father Michael Lapsley from the Institute for Healing of Memories in South Africa.
I was asked just to share a little bit of my own journey. I was born and brought up in New Zealand, came to South Africa in 1973 at the height of apartheid. I often think when I remember back that the day I arrived in South Africa, I stopped being a human being and became a white man. That suddenly color defined every single part of my life. And I began another journey to recover my own humanity in solidarity with black people struggling for their own fundamental rights. And I joined the organization of Nelson Mandela, the African National Congress of South Africa. I was a chaplain, a priest within the liberation movement. You know, as South Africans, we were fortunate in that our struggle became the struggle of all humanity. That somehow the world realized that there was something at stake in South Africa that concerned the humanness of all of us. As you know, Nelson Mandela got released from prison because there came on the stage a white president who said, "We will talk." Unfortunately, when they said they would talk, it didn't mean that they would stop killing. So at my home in Zimbabwe, I received in the post 2 religious magazines. And when I opened one of the magazines, they exploded. So I lost my hands, I lost an eye, my eardrums were shattered. A little bit of the time, I thought it would be better to be dead, because I did not know whether life would be life again in any meaningful sense. But when I was bombed, I received messages of prayer, love, support from all over the world. I sometimes say that when I die, I won't need a funeral, because people said all the nice things then. And I can recommend it. I don't know why they wait till you're dead before they say nice things to you. That prayer, that love, that support created for me the safe space, the sacred space, where I was enabled to say that, to see that if I was full of hatred, bitterness, self-pity, and desire for revenge, that I would be a victim forever. So my own journey was a journey from being a victim to being a survivor to being a victor, in the sense of becoming part of creating and shaping a different kind of world. In my work and the Institute for Healing of Memories, I travel the world seeking to accompany others so that others too will be able to acknowledge the pain of the past and yet not be its prisoner. It is appropriate that the story we begin with is the story of the atomic bomb.
おはようございます。
Good morning.
日本からやってきました長崎の被爆者の中山です。
I am Takamitsu Nakayama. I'm from Nagasaki.
私は
I was born in Peru, South America in 1929.
生まれました。その私が
It was around the time when Japan invaded China and was denounced by the world. So immigrant Japanese living outside Japan, like us, were placed in a very difficult situation, and my family decided to go back to Japan. And that was where I fell victim to the atomic bomb.
日本が戦争を
If
始
the
め
military government of Japan had not invaded other countries, I would not have become a hibakusha, a bomb victim.
日本の戦争で
I really understand the sentiment and feeling of the people in Asian countries who were victimized by Japan's war of aggression, and those of the American people who suffered the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor.
で多くの人
And as a Japanese citizen, I sincerely apologize to them for the enormous suffering caused by the military of my country.
同時に
However, I must say that the atomic bombing was the most cruel act of mass destruction.
長崎で2つの原
The
爆で
cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were completely destroyed by the 2 atomic bombs, and about 100,000 people were instantly killed on those days.
Mr. Nakayama, what made you decide to be a peace activist?
ところが
5 years after the bombing, that was in 1950, when the war on Korean War started, and that was when the danger of the use of nuclear weapons was again discussed. And I couldn't just sit still, and I started to work with other people on the street to campaign against the use of atomic bomb again.
さらにその後
And in 1954, the United States conducted the big hydrogen bomb test in the Pacific, which was called Bravo shot. and the explosive power of that bomb was 1,000 times bigger than the Hiroshima type bomb. And that was when 800 Japanese fishing boats were affected, which were operating in the area. The danger of the use of nuclear weapons came up again and again over the years, including the time after the 9/11.
This long journey that you've traveled, what's been the hardest part?
The most difficult work that I faced was to try to make other people understand the seriousness of the effect of the atomic bombing. And we believe that the only way that we really put an end to our own suffering and is to make sure that Nagasaki will be the last place where people will be injured and killed and affected by the atomic bomb and nuclear weapons.
Mr. Nakayama, where do you draw your strength from?
When I came to the United States to speak in the meeting which was held at the Nevada test site, and among the audience was a young American woman who came up to me and said, "My father was a scientist working on uranium, and I used to be very proud of what he was doing, but after I hear about your story, I was so sorry and I want to apologize to you." And actually I was really impressed by what she said to me. And when the young people of the United States came to me and encouraged my effort and who really understand what I was going to say, I really felt hope for the future.
One of the things that gives me hope is that enemies can become friends. So I want to thank you for the kind of grace that leads you to come here with an apology. In my tradition within the continent of Africa, we would want to call you a living ancestor. And I'd ask everybody to stand just to honor and thank Mr. Nakayama. We come to another context, that of Israel and Palestine. And we would like now to invite Robbie to share something of her story.
I want to thank you for this environment of feeling safe. It's, I look around and I sense the pain that we all share, but nevertheless, we are safe with each other. And for me, that is a huge benefit of being with you all. So thank you for that. The letter that I'm going to read you is the letter which I wrote to the family of the sniper who killed my son, David. This, for me, is one of the most difficult letters I will ever have to write. My name is Robbie Damlin. I am the mother of David, who was killed by your son. I know he did not kill David because he was David. If he had known him, he could never have done such a thing. David was 28 years old. He was a student at Tel Aviv University, doing his master's in the philosophy of education. He had a compassion for all people and understood the suffering of the Palestinians. He treated all around him with dignity. David was part of the movement of the officers who did not want to serve in the occupied territories. But nevertheless, for many reasons, he went to serve when he was called to the reserves. What makes our children do what they do? Do they not understand the pain they are causing? Your son, by now having to be in jail for many years, and mine, who I will never be able to hold and see again, or see him married, or have a grandchild from him. I cannot describe to you the pain I feel since his death. and the pain of his brother and girlfriend and all who knew and loved him. After David was killed, I started to look for a way to prevent other families, both Israeli and Palestinian, from suffering this dreadful loss. I was looking for a way to stop the cycle of violence. After a year, I closed my office and joined the Parents Circle Families Forum. We are a group of Israeli and Palestinian families who have all lost an immediate family member in the conflict. We are looking for ways to create a dialogue with a long-term vision of reconciliation. After your son was captured, I spent many sleepless nights thinking about what to do. I have now come to the conclusion that I would like to try to find a way to reconcile. Maybe this is difficult for you to understand or believe, but I know in my heart that it is the only path that I can choose. I understand that your son is considered a hero by many of Palestinian people. He is considered to be a freedom fighter, fighting for justice and for an independent, viable Palestinian state. But I also feel that if he understood that taking the life of another may not be the way, and that if he understood the consequences of his act, he could see that a non-violent solution is the only way for both nations to live together in peace. I give this letter to people I love and trust to deliver. I do not know what your reaction will be. It is a risk for me. But I believe that you will understand, as it comes from the most honest part of me. I hope that you will show the letter to your son, and that maybe in the future we can meet. Let us put an end to the killing and look for a way, through mutual understanding and empathy, to live a normal life free of violence. I wanted to acknowledge Nadwa, my Palestinian partner. Nadwa and Ali, two members of our group, delivered the letter to the family. Needless to say, they really were very surprised, and I think it's the beginning of my understanding of the cycle of violence, because I discovered who the sniper was and who his family were, and that he, as a little boy, had seen his uncle killed very violently in front of him, and that in the second Intifada, another uncle died, and a third uncle disappeared. And so he went out on a path of revenge, and he killed my son, plus 9 other people.
The response after the letter was delivered?
They said they would write me a letter. I'm waiting. Ali went back to see them a second time, and they said they would have to consult the elders in the village, and I hope that they will.
Do you want to meet him?
I think it's a process. I think I should meet. I don't know. It's a very difficult thing to know exactly how I will behave. How do I know how I will behave?
How long ago was it?
It's not a year yet.
It's a short time.
The trial is still on, because this young man killed 10 people on the same day. I don't know if he will agree to even see me. And it's not something I will do on my own. It's together with somebody who will mediate.
What's the hardest part of the present for you?
The hardest part for me is living in a country where I'm responsible, I'm part of a system, understanding the need for Israel to exist, but nevertheless wanting to live in a moral country, not wanting to be part of a system of occupation, not wanting to be part of the violence, and understanding the terrible consequences of the violence.
What enables you to go on? Do you see signs of hope?
You know, when I look into the eyes of kids in schools, and when you see suddenly a glimmer of understanding of the other side, because after all, these Palestinian children have never met anybody out of uniform or somebody who isn't a settler. On the other side, these Israeli children have never met a Palestinian. So yes, the Parents Circle, for me, is the most effective peace group that I could be working in, and I'm very grateful that they exist.
Could we just keep some silence to honor the two sisters who have come together, and for the pain and the journey and the hope. I'd like to invite Jean-Baptiste and Takirutamana from Rwanda to join me.
And I'd like to honor the deceased ones as a promise I made to them when I saw piles of bodies were being put on the roadside. By honoring those who died during the genocide, I would like each of us to honor the losses we had across the globe. I'd be grateful. Thank you. I was born into a divided society for political reasons from the colonial people, but also from the post-independence leaders. And I was born in type of fear of the neighbor. Although my parents taught me how to love, how to be friends with everyone, that fear was there. In 1994, more than 1 million people were killed in Rwanda, and my family was among them. I was in Kigali, but my family was in the countryside. All my brothers were killed. My sister, all their children, but 3. All my grandparents, all my uncles and aunties. Around 60 immediate family members were killed, and around 300 within the extended family. I lost my trust in people. I lost direction in life. And I was shaken in my faith in God and people. I hated everybody who was behind the killing. I hated the Hutus who had killed my family, who had killed almost all the Tutsis who were in the country. I hated the international community. I hated everybody who didn't see the Rwandese person as a human person at the same level. But from that hatred, I realized that I was hurting myself. People in Rwanda killed because they were so poor. They were so desperate. They were told that if you kill your neighbor, you can take his house. If you kill your neighbor, you can get her job. And I realized I needed to work on the international development. I devoted myself to work for microfinance for widows, for poor people.
As the years are passing since '94, what's the hardest part for you?
One of them is forgiveness. I went to see the killer of my mom. He's out of prison. We are undergoing a community-based judgment process called Gachacha. But I felt my head was for going to see him to forgive him. But my heart is not yet ready. The other difficult thing is to realize that the structures which are behind human violence are still there. The international community is not changing. I feel helpless in front of so many negative forces.
Where do you get the strength to go on?
The main strength, I got it from my upbringing. My family was a loving one. My mom was so generous, and my dad was so truthful. And I think another thing which makes me going is my hope in people, to see so good people like you who are helping so many other people to regain their humanity. And really, my faith, my Christian faith, is there for much. I believe in a loving God.
The whole world responded to 9/11. When Rwanda happened, the world looked the other way. So it's appropriate that Peaceful Tomorrows invites you as Jean-Baptiste, but you as Rwandese to be here. So I think as part of the human family, we need, all of us, and I do, to feel my own sense of guilt and shame that we look the other way. But thank you for the richness of your humanity. Let's just keep some silence as we honor Jean-Baptiste, his family, those who have died and those who are living. I think everybody in this room are called, all of us, to be wounded healers, recognizing our own woundedness, playing a role in the healing of the human family.
We've been sharing stories both in order to get to know one another, but also in order to sharpen our thinking about ways in which the network that we hope to be born out of this time we spend together can be the most effective voice for justice and for peace.
As they began to envision how a network of survivors could address the challenges of genocide, war, and political violence, the delegates met in small groups.
You have to give the people an alternative, by the way, if you are rejecting violence.
They discussed and debated the network's mission and the values all their organizations shared.
We are committed to justice for all people, but we reject violence as a path to justice.
But what would the network partners work on together? Guest speaker David Hartsoe from the Nonviolent Peace Force offered one vision: nonviolent peacekeeping.
Most often when there's violence or conflict, governments say, well, the response is to do nothing and look the other way, or go in and start bombing people. And we knew that there was a third alternative, and that was nonviolent peacemaking. And our belief is that in most areas of conflict, there are local peacemakers that both understand the causes of the conflict and possible solutions. But very often, they get killed or disappeared, by extremists on one side or the other, or governments. And we've also discovered that having international people present with these local peacemakers not only gives them moral support, but also helps protect them. We can be like the nonviolent bodyguards. So we can help make peaceful change possible just by being present. And I just wanted to say we are excited, very excited, about the birth of this new network.
But what would the network partners work on together? Brainstorming by the delegates produced many other ideas for projects.
We need to concentrate on peace education. We need to change minds.
I wanted to choose politics as one of the challenges we face. How do we connect politically so that we can take our work to the next level?
The first thing that we came up with was a need to develop a strategy to persuade governments to redirect monies from war-related activities to support human rights needs.
For the swift abolition of nuclear weapons, we need signatures from all over the world. We also can have peaceful demonstrations and the educational programs in each respective country.
What can we do to make the media pay attention?
Soon there was a wall covered with plans for action. Next, the conference participants considered how to organize a network so that it would be most effective. Liz Bernstein from the Nobel Prize-winning International Campaign to Ban Landmines described how they had structured their network.
When we started the movement to ban landmines, we needed a structure to help us reach our goals. We did a remarkable thing, ordinary people who banned a weapon used by every army in the world since World War II. We shifted the debate from a disarmament issue to a humanitarian issue. So we developed a very loose network because we believed that those working to ban landmines in Cambodia knew best what to do in their country, and those working in France knew what to do in their country better than us in the States. So we really let each country campaign do their own work in their own country, and we shared information among us, and we shared ideas to give ideas to one another. To be a member, an organization had to simply endorse our goals and pledge to do one landmine-related activity a year. Steering committee was formed of leaders from those campaigns or organizations who did the work. We did not have a regional structure or a quota structure, 2 from Africa, 2 from Europe. We had those who were most active, who were nominated to be on a steering committee. We did believe that citizens of the world had a role in participating about international policy and things that affect our lives. And that was held up as a model, the new citizen diplomacy, the partnership between civil society and governments. But I really feel it is threatened. And many governments want to return to business as usual, where governments make treaties and people stand outside. And I think that's a challenge for all of us.
But the conference was not an endless series of working sessions. There were shared meals, with time for relaxed conversations. And a very special visit from one of America's greatest peace activists, Pete Seeger.
Everybody sing it. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to New York Island. From the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream water. This land was made for you. I'm now a follower of Dr. King. I think he achieved things that no one believed were achievable, staying away from violence. I am actually more optimistic now than I was 60 years ago, and I think if there is a world here in 100 years, it will be because of millions of little efforts here and there, some of them very local. It's a struggle all the way.
As the second day of the international conference drew to a close, the participants chose a committee to write a mission statement for their new International Network for Peace. On the final day of the conference, everyone reviewed a draft of the statement.
We are a global network of organizations comprised of people who lost loved ones to...
After 2.5 days of working to build a shared vision, there were still many concepts that sparked debate.
In my organization of 11M, for the 11th of March Madrid bombing, we debated this issue, this word a lot, and the word that we came up with was the word affected.
Can I suggest that we say, and those directly affected?
Take a show of hands.
Especially challenging was agreeing on how to list the network's goals.
I think it is the common denominator amongst all of us, which is non-violence. Let's focus on that.
My hope is to include in this mission statement as our goal to eliminate nuclear weapons, which is the worst form of violence.
Discussion was long and detailed. As the end of the conference drew near, there were still many unresolved differences.
This is fundamental to what we're about. Is this an organization that's about everything, or is it about some things? We need to get this one right, together.
So the committee returned to work, producing revisions and additions. And in the final moments of the conference, a mission statement launching the new International Network for Peace was approved, as the delegates applauded the drafting committee. The member organizations, all comprised of people who had lost loved ones to or were directly affected by war, nuclear weapons, terrorism, genocide, organized crime, and political violence, agreed to work together to break the cycles of violence and revenge. They dedicated their network to addressing the root causes of violence and to promoting nonviolence as the most effective strategy for resolving conflict.
Having you all here has been an incredible experience for all of us at Peaceful Tomorrows who have been thinking and dreaming about this day, and I know that something positive is going to come out of this whole experience for all of us.
One blue sky above us, one ocean lapping all our shore, one earth so green and round, Who could ask for more? Some hope to take the easy way. Poisons, bombs, they think we need 'em. Don't you know you can't kill all the unbelievers? There's no shortcut to freedom. One blue sky above us, one blue sky above us, one ocean lapping all our shore, one earth so green and round, one earth so green and round. Who could ask for